Let's use our model of efficient emissions control to see how that efficient level changes when some of the important determinants change. There we have our baseline model. E star indicates the efficient level, marginal damage, aggregate marginal abatement cost, and this would be the efficient level of emissions control. And we could recall that this point here would be what you consider the unregulated level of emissions. So what happens to E star, and any change we'll call E double star, or double asterisks, when the first determinant change, abatement becomes cheaper because of new technologies or improvements in technologies. Abatement becomes cheaper. This is going to be kind of a pivot in of this function. And so we can call this AMAC prime, and the intersection here means that we would have the efficiency requires lower emissions or more abatement. Why intuitively? Well, if abatement's cheaper, then that balancing act between the benefits of reducing emissions, which are the avoided damages, and the cost, the marginal abatement cost, or in total, the total abatement cost, that balancing act has changed, right? It's cheaper now, and so efficiency, maximizing the net benefits, is going to require fewer emissions and more abatement. I popped an arrow down there to say the first determinant would make the efficient level go down. What about determinant 2? More people are the victims of pollution. That's not going to change the marginal abatement cost of cleaning up. It's going to change the marginal damage. More people, that just means for the same level of pollution, we're going to have more damages, right? The sum of those damages are going to increase. And so, again, in blue, this could be a shift or a pivot in this direction. We'll call that MD prime. And in this case, E double star, our efficient level, has also decreased. Next, suppose that new published evidence suggests that pollution, or this particular type of pollutant, is less harmful. Well, it's going to have the opposite effect of marginal damages that we just observed. So let's say MD is a little flatter here, lower marginal damage for each level of emissions, and that is going to cause the efficient level of emissions to increase. Right? That again, that balancing act between the benefits and the cost, if those benefits decrease of emissions control because it's less damaging, then the efficient level of emissions goes up, the efficient level of abatement goes down. So number 4, if more polluting firms enter the industry, what happens to the efficient level of emissions? Well, more firms is going to simply push out the AMAC, we call that AMAC prime. Right? Again, that marginal abatement cost is kind of that demand for emissions. More firms, it's just like what happens when you have more consumers in the market. What happens to demand? It shifts out to the right. And so this, at least in our stylized model here, is going to increase the efficient level of emissions. Okay, on to number 5. Consumer demand for polluting products goes down. Well, I think it's pretty clear that's not going to affect the marginal damage of pollution. Where it's going to affect is the marginal abatement cost curve, the aggregate marginal abatement cost curve. And again, thinking about that marginal abatement cost as a demand for emissions, right? It's not that firms are producing emissions, they're producing some sort of product that has an indirect effect of emissions, but those benefits that they're getting, right, those kind of net benefits that they're getting from producing and selling this product are captured in some way in the marginal abatement cost, right? Because we know that this is where firms would like to be, the unregulated level or profit maximizing level of emissions. And so when demand and the value that consumers are putting on these products goes down, it's going to shift inward this aggregate marginal abatement cost. So it's going to work just like number 1, same kind of direction, different reason, different direction. And so we're going to have fewer emissions, lower level of emissions, and greater level of abatement. Okay, finally, number 6, what if we include enforcement costs into the model? Again, this is going to affect that marginal abatement cost, or that's where this model can capture that, okay? That if we have to monitor firms and sanction non-compliance, it essentially increases the cost of meeting abatement requirements or emissions reduction requirements. And so it's going to work kind of like in the same way that more firms entering in the industry. So it's going to shift out those cost of meeting abatement requirements, and we would have more emissions or less abatement in our efficient world.